And a blessed Monday to you, day after Veterans Day, and I don't know, maybe being recognized in some places today. We certainly always appreciate the heroic sacrifices of the veterans of our country, and hope you, if you've got any in your family, you were able to correspond with them and tell them how much you love them and appreciate them. Take two with Jerry and Debbie getting underway in our normal locations. Debbie, after being together for a couple of shows last week.
Yeah, for the EWTN radio conference in Birmingham, Alabama. It was a spectacular experience just to be with all the affiliates. Thank you so much. What a great time we had. I'm looking at all the Facebook posts that all of you are doing from the conference, and it's just so fun. I mean, what a great time to get together and just share the common mission of evangelization, you know, spreading the gospel message through the radio airwaves. It's a beautiful thing to be able to have Catholic radio, and it's a gem in our midst. So if your Catholic radio station is asking for some necessary funds because it's pledge drive season, please step up to the plate and be generous. We just ask you to do that. And always remember EWTN as well.
That's right. Well, let's give out the topic and the phone number, Debbie. Get the phones ringing. And I know that you had something that you wanted to share with our listeners. So the phone number is 833-288-EWTN or 833-288-3986. And we are asking any of you who want to weigh in on this today, how have you benefited from counseling or therapy? Have you been on the couch, so to speak, or have you had any kind of formal counseling, therapy sessions, maybe a psychiatrist, a counselor, a licensed marriage and family therapist? Because, Debbie, you know, for a long time, and even to a certain extent today, it carries a little bit of a stigma with it, you know, and sometimes it's viewed as a sign of weakness. But you and I have both shared on the show that we have spent time in counseling, and I'll tell you what, it is well worth the money for me, and I don't know about you, I presume it is, Deb.
Oh, my goodness. I always talk about I could live on the counselor's virtual couch. Are you kidding me? I think I love it. Not for me, it's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of being able to communicate my feelings and thoughts and work to a better understanding of things. So yeah, if how have you benefited from counseling or therapy? Please weigh in on this at 833-288-3986. And if you'll just allow me a couple minutes, I just want to share a very quick two stories that happened on the way back from Birmingham back to Phoenix. My husband and I got on the plane when we left the radio conference, and the first leg of the journey was from Birmingham to Dallas, and it's about an hour and 40-minute flight. And there three flight attendants that were running that flight were actually based out of Phoenix. They live in Phoenix, so they were Phoenix flight attendants. This is Southwest Airlines, and their names are Pam, Patrice, and Brendan. Now, Brendan and I share priest friends in common from Phoenix. So we ended up getting to know one another, because here's what happened with myself and these three flight attendants. As soon as the takeoff happened, Jerry, I very quickly, you know me, Jerry, I'm always with the whole food supplements and everything. And I, being at the radio conference, I missed some of my regular schedule of taking the whole food supplements. So what did I do, Jerry? I very quickly popped, I think 4 or 5 whole food supplements with a little bit of water before the takeoff. And then I thought, oh, this is going to really probably make me feel sick. So Marty had a bagel. I took one bite of the bagel and off we went. Okay. Jerry, the whole entire thing got stuck in my throat. Yes, Jerry, I could talk, I could breathe, but I couldn't move it from my throat. And I was shaking. I didn't know what to do. Here we're on takeoff. And Marty's like, what do you want? What do you, try to cough it up, do whatever. It was really not attractive at all. I unbuckled my seatbelt. I ran to the back of the plane. I said, I have to go to the restroom. It wouldn't dislodge. These three flight attendants, Pam, Patrice, and Brendan, spent the next hour and 15 minutes allowing me to stand in the back with them, helping me to dislodge these whole food supplements that I quickly swallowed. And just wanted to say that Marty did come back and be with me for the last part of the flight. But for the first part, he actually fell asleep. And so I said, shouldn't you go get my husband? He's probably thinking I'm dying at the back of the plane. And the flight attendant said, no, actually, your husband's sleeping. But I wanted to do a shout out to Southwest Airlines. They were so wonderful. I mean, it was not an attractive sight, Jerry, and they were so gracious and courteous and loving and kind. I hugged them all goodbye, and I feel like they saved my life. So here's the lesson. Don't quickly swallow a bunch of vitamins or pills right before takeoff. Not a good recipe.
Okay, well, thank God you're here with us today, and thank God for those flight attendants. It's Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. Actually, I have a little flight attendant story to share here in a minute as well on the way
Okay.
home. But want to give that phone number out. We're talking about counseling, therapy. Are you in counseling or therapy of any kind? Have you benefited from it in the past? And obviously, we cannot discuss details of anything that you're in in discussions with a therapist. But we're just wondering, did you ever one time maybe look at it as like, oh, that's for weak people. That's for people who are all messed up. Well, we really believe, Debbie and I believe it's a sign of health. I believe it's a sign of someone wanting to be as whole as you can be, sound mind and body and all integrated. So if you participated in any kind of counseling, we just want to hear, again, not what you talked about, not your problems, not the issues, but just how you came away from that. Did you have a good experience, bad experience? Did it help you become more the person you are meant by God to be? 833-288-3986. And real quick, Debbie, I was going to tell you and the show team off the air, but on my second leg of the flight from Denver to into Palm Springs, I live in Cathedral City, California. I see a priest for spiritual direction, and he has me doing an hour every day in a church near a tabernacle if I can. And if I can't, then I sort of orient my heart toward a tabernacle. Well, Savior.org has online adoration, so I've taken a screenshot of that. And at about 38,000 feet, I was doing some prayer and adoration with just looking at the screenshot of that. And one of the flight attendants comes along, and she almost walked past me, and then she stopped. She caught herself. She comes back. She goes, "Well, pray for me, will you?" And I said, yeah, I sure will. I said, hey, you return the favor, pray for me if you would. And she goes, yeah. She goes, yeah, I will. And then she's looking at me. She goes, are you on the radio?
Are you kidding me?
I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding.
Wow.
She says, are you on the radio? I said, yes. She goes, I listen to your show all the time. She goes, your host, her name is Georgiani. And I went, yeah, that's it. So she lives in Houston. She's based in Houston and listens on Guadalupe radio. So
Wow.
yeah, a few years ago, I ran into a seventh grade friend on a flight, a Southwest flight. And then on Saturday, this wonderful flight attendant. And Debbie, she actually said that she and some of her friends are struggling with an issue that we're going to do a topic. I already had in mind the topic to do. So I told her to email us and we'll tell her when that show's going to air. So you never know what's going to happen in the air. My experience was a little more pleasant than yours, though, it sounds like.
Yeah, that's true. I would have liked your experience better. But you know what? This is Take Two with Jerry and Debbie and you. So please weigh in on the topic today about counseling. We'll be right back. This is Take Two with Jerry and Debbie and you. So please call in and share about any type of encounter you've had with counseling, therapy, spiritual direction, anything. We don't want to hear the details of when you had your sessions, but we'd like to hear the outcome. Maybe what it did for you at your spiritual growth, how it made you realize how to look at things, reframe things. Maybe you went into counseling kicking and screaming. Maybe you were forced in by a spouse or a loved one saying, if you don't go, that's it. I'm never going to talk to you again. But then when you came out of counseling, you're like, wow, that was really good. Maybe you didn't like counseling. We share everything on this show. So it's really a wonderful experience and a great conversation. And the outcome of it is really quite phenomenal because we all walk away with a better perspective. But real quickly, Jerry, you talked about adoration on, focusing in prayer on the plane. Well, if those of us who may not be able to go to Mass physically on a daily basis, how beautiful that it is that EWTN has right from Our Lady of the Angels Chapel in Irondale, Alabama, Mass every morning. And it's tomorrow morning and every morning at 8 Eastern Time. Think about that, folks. Receiving spiritual communion, being able to listen to the readings, hear the homily. I mean, that is just a wonderful way to begin your day. So, check it out. To tell your friends about it. If you can't make it physically because of your work schedule or something like that, it's always great to hear it on the radio, 8 a.m. Eastern Time.
Okay, we're talking about counseling and therapy, and maybe Debbie brought in spiritual direction as well. Let's just put it this way. If you have gone to somebody just to try to help maybe unload your burdens a little bit or get some insights and advice and the tools to how to just navigate life better, let's talk about that. Again, we don't want the details, don't want to know what the issues were, but just, are you better off for it? Some people, like Debbie said, maybe come away with not such a great experience. But here's the number. It's 833-288-3986. And Debbie, I would say the end result of this discussion, for me anyway, is I just want all of us to know, first of all, that, if you choose to go to some kind of counseling or therapy, it is not a sign of weakness. Actually, I believe it's a sign of strength. And also just to help anybody else out there who's thinking, gosh, I've got these issues. What do I do about them? They might hear somebody share their positive experience and say, I'm going to give that a try. So this could really be a very beneficial conversation.
It sure can. So please call in. And Carmen, hold on for just 1 second because I want to share something, Jerry, and this is the other part two of what I wanted to share when I landed in Phoenix on the journey home from Alabama from the radio conference. You know that my birthday was Friday, and so I was receiving a lot of text messages, a lot of phone calls from friends and family members, and I couldn't really answer everybody because we were in the middle of the radio conference, Jerry, and we were also on Catholic Answers Live and doing our live show. And so my one friend from Phoenix was texting me, and I thought, oh, how sweet. He's calling to wish me a happy birthday. His wife is calling. Well, when I landed in Phoenix, I quickly called my girlfriend back, and I want to respect their privacy. They were not calling to wish me a happy birthday because on my birthday, their grandchild, 3 months old, died.
Oh,
no. And that they're still trying to figure out exactly what happened, if it was some kind of asphyxiation or aspirated or something of that nature, choking or something. Baby was healthy. It was just a tragic situation, and they were calling for prayers. I want to respect them, their family members, so much, but please, I ask the Take Two family, this is a very beautiful family. They love God so very, very much. They love their grandchildren. And their daughter, who's the aunt of the baby, was with the baby when the baby died. She was taking care of the baby. And I was praying all weekend because it bothered me so much. I was thinking of her and thinking, how could she tell her brother that the baby died and she was with the baby and everything? And I prayed so hard. I said, Lord, I don't know. I don't think it's the right time to reach her. Well, I was so tired yesterday, Jerry, because I was taking care of my mother, and then we were going to church. I said to Marty, I'm just going to run into this restaurant. Why don't you meet me at this restaurant? We'll have a quick salad before church. And she was there with her husband, the sister, the aunt of the baby. And I ran up to her. We hugged and embraced each other. And I asked her, I said, you're not going to believe this, but I've been praying. I wanted to see you because my heart just goes out to you. We talked. It turns out their pastor came and offered them a very beautiful session to try and get over this, because this is tragic, just tragic. The baby is just absolutely beautiful, and it's just horrible. Anyway, so you talk about counseling. You talk about how pastors and ministers and priests, they quickly are on the scene giving those counseling sessions, whether we know it or not. We don't have to sign up for it. We don't have to pay for it, but they're there. And so counseling is very beneficial. So this is the tie-in, but I'm also asking for the Take Two family to please pray for this entire family. I just can't even imagine what they're going through. So thank you for allowing me this time.
Yeah. Well, I'll offer my Mass intention going at noon Pacific time today, and my rosary and my chaplet as well. And I know a lot of other people are going to pray for that as well. All right, 833-288-3986. Have you benefited from counseling or therapy? It could be for your marriage, could be for some kind of substance abuse, it could be for a trauma. A lot of people just simply realize, that they struggle with certain areas of life, and they just want to kind of get a better handle on that. Just find a little bit of fine tuning. Again, not asking for any of the details. We can't ask for them, and we certainly wouldn't want you to share anything. But just really, how has it made you better, or maybe not better? 833-288-3986. Okay, Carmen has indeed, as Debbie said, been waiting patiently in Cary, North Carolina, listening to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie on the EWTN app. Hello, Carmen. Welcome.
Hello. Excuse me. I choked a little bit with Debbie's story there
Right.
because I have a sister who watches my babies all the time, and I know that would be very traumatic for her. So your friend will be in my prayers and my rosary today.
Thank you so very much.
Oh, you're welcome. So my story that I wanted to share was actually my husband and I, without saying any details like you guys explained, we struggled. We've been married now for 14 years. We got married at a very young age, 24. And we hit the wall many times, and we needed help. And at one time, and I forgot to mention this, at one time I did go, and I totally forgot about it, but I did go to a counselor seeking help for myself because I could not get my husband, to this day, never could get him to go to counseling. It was pride, ego, you name it. I just couldn't do it. No matter how bad the situation was, he would not do it. So I went for myself. Unfortunately, my first experience as a nurse, because I never went back, the counselor that I chose, which was based on, what was covered by my insurance, wasn't really going to help me. And I realized that right away as I went to my first visit, and divorce was on the differential. And I looked at her and I said, no, ma'am, that is not even an option. And so after I finished that session, I never went back. And I said, this is not going to work. And this is not a counselor for me. Many years later, I finally started coming back to my faith slowly but surely. Started with RCIA. And it was all me. And in that journey, I started going to adoration as things got harder at home. And I knew that my husband would not go to counseling. And so I not just went to adoration, occasionally. I signed up for adoration at the third hour. It was 3:00 in the morning every Sunday for a whole entire year. And the only reason I stopped is because we are military and we got moved. So, and then over here, I have not found a parish that is close by that has adoration every weekend. But I did sign up, and it was amazing. I just asked the Lord. I remember I was hungry to learn my faith. I was hungry to get closer to Him, and it was that hunger that I wanted to transfer to my husband, but I did not know how, and I knew I couldn't do it. If I even tried to bring him to the faith, mind you, he was an atheist, which makes it even more miraculous before my eyes because he did not know who God was. He didn't even know the story about Christmas very well. It was, I knew it was going to be uphill, and I just went every single Sunday, and I did it. I signed up for a reason because I did not want to slack. When you are responsible, when they're counting on you, it is more difficult for one to, just not take it serious. And when I needed help and I got to study, all that stuff. In fact, during the journey, when my husband started the same way I did, going to RCI classes, following my example, asking him.
So, wait, so Carmen, So,
Yeah.
Carmen, just for the sake of time, let me ask you this question because we're all kind of sitting on the edge of our seat waiting for the end of the story. Did your husband come into the faith? Do you credit the greatest counselor of all in adoration, our Lord, being with our Lord? Do you
Yes,
credit
ma'am.
that? Mm-hmm. Amen.
Absolutely. Because there was
Amen.
no other person, nobody, and he did. He came to the faith. He did it on his own. He he is a phenomenal husband today, a
Wow.
great father. I mean, he is taking the lead, which I didn't even go that far when I asked God. Maybe I did. I don't remember, but
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted him to be that husband, that man that he was created to be, and he is better than I am, and
Oh,
we now talk every,
right.
like I said, in
Well,
the military. He's stationed somewhere else right
right.
now, and we
Beautiful.
pray every night together.
Well, please
It
thank
is
him.
it's
Yeah, thank him for his service, his military service. And you just hit something that I have to just tap into again when you said we pray together. That is so vital for the marriage to unfold and to flourish and to be the best it can possibly be. It's so important, and it seems so simple, doesn't it, Carmen? It seems so simple. Let's just pray together. Well, you can do it by phone. You can do it when you're physically together, whatever. But pray together because where two or more are gathered, there he is. I mean, and you went to adoration. And you know what's beautiful about that? The greatest, like I said, the greatest of counselors is our Lord. And he's there to listen. He's there to impart. He's there to give confirmations. He's there to give affirmations. He's there to change us from the inside out. And that worked for you. And that is a beautiful thing. And so I say, wow, praise be to God. I want to just shout it from the rooftops. Jerry, what do you think? I mean, that is just an awesome story.
Yeah, yeah. Counseling with another human being wasn't necessarily the solution for Carmen and her husband, but obviously, like you said, Jesus can do all things. So my take would be just simply, Carmen, thank you for sharing that. And I would say, we all should, of course, be going to Jesus every day, if we can, in adoration, if not in any other means that we can, call him into our hearts and into our lives. And of course, sometimes, grace does build on nature. So what we want to do is, if necessary, certainly seek out that counseling. When I go to counselors and therapists, Debbie, I pray that the Holy Spirit is working through that individual. So I'm
Exactly.
asking for the grace of God to build on the steps I'm taking on the natural level. So, Carmen, thank you so very much. We appreciate that call.
Beautiful story.
Talking today about benefiting from counseling or therapy. Jenny, thank you very much for calling, listening on the iCatholic Radio app in Tampa Bay, Florida. Hi, Jenny. Welcome to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
Hi. Hi, are you there? Can you hear
We
me?
are here, Jen. Yes, we can. Sure.
Hey, thanks. Well, Carmen's story choked me up too, so
Mm.
thank you for sharing that, Carmen. I will pray for her and her marriage as well. I've been married just 12 years. I married late in life, so to speak, at the ripe old age of 38 to going into 39 to my 40s. And my husband, then I married, we married rather quickly. I didn't really know any better, but even at the old age of 38, I wasn't really raised with much religious education, much less being Catholic. I thought in order to be Catholic, you had to be born into a Catholic family, or you had to be Italian, or you had to be Irish or something like that. I didn't know just everybody could be in the Catholic Church. Kind of like the, Jewish, I didn't know. So it was great. I was thrilled when I met my husband, and he was Catholic, and he knew I hadn't had very much religious education growing up as a child. And he brought me into the church. Well, he's my husband's Italian and from New York, and he's also half Greek. So he's very passionate in a lot of ways. So there was a lot I didn't realize about him in a lot of ways, and a lot of things I didn't realize about marriage and things to that effect. And he was 19, and he's like 19 and a half years older than me. And we married within 6 months after we met. And I was just thrilled because I really wanted to get married. I always knew I wanted to get married in my heart. I don't think I ever really realized what marriage was all about. I just knew I always wanted to get married. And then I was a Christian. I'd always been raised as a Christian, but I never really had any much religious education other than I was, I was taught that Jesus was the Son of God, and I wasn't sure how all that worked out, but, I have learned since in my ripe old age of 50.
Well,
as
Jenny,
we
if you can
speak.
hold that thought
So,
right there, Jenny. We just got a pause here that we can't
yeah.
move. Yeah, this is something we do for our affiliates that carry the show. We let them say a few words to their local listeners. Then we're going to come back, and this is developing into another, hopefully, God willing, beautiful, happy ending tale from Jenny. We'll find out about that. Jenny has been in counseling and therapy. We've got Will and Sue and Rich and Deborah on the line, so we're going to try to make our way through all of you on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie, talking about how you have benefited from counseling or therapy. Not details, just the outcome has made you a better person.
Thanks for being with us on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. We're talking about benefiting from counseling or therapy today. And folks, just got to let you know, Jerry, we may have to do a part 2 on this. I'm just going to call it right now because we have the phone lines are completely lit up. We've got emails coming in, texts coming in. So folks, if you get on the air, if we can have the Reader's Digest version, we would greatly appreciate it. We're going to try to get to as many calls as possible. And Jenny, sorry we had to interrupt you in the middle of your story, but go ahead and take it away because we are very much interested in how it ends.
Absolutely. Well, listen, so we married back in 2006, and that was the year we went in. My husband and I, when we married quickly. I'd always wanted to get married, and he was a bit older than me, as far as 19 years older than me. So that was always kind of a challenge. And I didn't know what marriage was all about, but I knew I wanted to get married. So I've learned quickly in this 12 years. But I'll tell you that the best thing, I had us in marriage counseling like a month after we married, and he did not want to go. He was like, my counselor said, "You've got a bull in a china shop, girl." So, and I said, "Well, I love him. What do I do?" So I just think that Carmen's story, the previous caller before me, was just so inspiring. I missed part of your story, but in the end, after being married 12 years, he brought me into the faith. He showed me how to use faith in my life, my husband. But he was a bull in a china shop. He's difficult, but helping us go to counseling helped me learn a lot about him. Because he's very introvert. My husband. So don't give up hope, even if you're going in counseling. maybe you feel like you're, in a boat with one oar and you don't have that other oar going with your husband, and he'll at least agree to go with you, but you don't think it's going to work, just go, because you'll learn something. You'll learn something about him, about yourself, and I learned a lot about myself and about him, and maybe
absolutely,
and that's
absolutely.
what I.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I've been married 12 years, and we almost didn't make it, but we did, and we're going to keep on keeping on. So,
well, you are. You're thriving. You're thriving. And the beauty of your marriage, Jenny, what I love about it, you started off saying how passionate your husband is. He's part Italian, part Greek. And, in that passion, when it's channeled in the right way, no, seriously, when it's channeled in the right way, especially for the faith, you guys can really just take it to new heights. I mean, it's amazing. And look how he brought you into the faith. You guys are sharing the faith together. And that's the purpose of marriage, is to get each other to heaven. So you're on that path, and keep going, Jenny. That's awesome. It's an awesome direction.
Absolutely.
And I just love your story. Thank you for sharing it, because so many times people will say,
you're welcome.
People will say, I can't deal with that person's personality that I'm with. No, that person's personality can actually help you get to heaven. And if you learn more about yourself and others, like through counseling or through other people, it can really benefit. So, Jenny, way to go. What a great story. I knew it was going to have a happy ending.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jenny, for the call. Appreciate that. Well, there you go. 2 success stories in terms of marriages. And I know we have some others calling for different types of therapy that they've been in. So we're going to go next to Will, listening in Erie, Pennsylvania on Living Bread Radio. Will, we're glad that you called Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. How are you today?
Pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing well, Will. Thank you.
Good. Well, I'll try to do the Reader's Digest, okay?
Okay.
My mom, sadly, she married my father, who was a very abusive alcoholic, and she actually fled from him when I was about 3 months old. And I grew up my entire 18 years of life without ever hearing from him or seeing him. No phone call, no card, anything. So I, especially in my teen years, I developed a lot of issues with abandonment and rejection and also anger. And when I think I was about 23 years old, I decided I wanted to try to find my father and reach out to him. And I reached a distant relative, and she informed me that he had died 3 years previously. So actually, he drank himself to death. And having all that emotional baggage, and then having no way to actually contact him, I did go into counseling, and it was a blessing from God, because I started to learn to see my father's his own suffering and issues that I probably didn't know about his life, things that he had suffered with and experienced. It didn't make what he did right, but it gave me a sense of understanding that the anger and the hostility and the abandonment was not necessarily something that I really knew everything about. But it also I learned that forgiveness was the best gift I could give to myself. I'm sorry. When I was able to do that, I really had, God released me from that burden. So having that knowledge that this was a gift that I could give myself, I was able to get through and release a lot of that emotional baggage. And not only that, I never was able to refer to God as Father before that. I never could say Father.
Right. Well,
and
go ahead.
I was able to do that. So anyway, so counseling was, by the grace of God, got me through something that I suspect if I would have carried it on in my lifetime, it would have had much more negative consequences. So I do encourage people to, with serious emotional kinds of things like that. It is a way of finding healing.
Yeah. Well, the last thing you said there, Will, I want to start with, and that is for those who realize they have wounds or emotional traumas or scar, injuries or anything, that sometimes can be a little bit tricky. I mean, we go through life and we're struggling in this area or that area of our lives. And by the way, Debbie and I are not counselors or therapists, but we have lived this stuff. So we just share from our hearts. But sometimes we go through life and we have all these struggles and we don't know what the origin or the root of them are. And so I just want to say to anyone who's listening right now, if you have any struggles at all, if you look back in the past, not to relive it or brood over it, but if you have a difficult family situation or relationships, you've been abused, you've been traumatized, give some consideration to going to a good, solid counselor who's at the very least not going to counter your Catholic beliefs. It doesn't have to be a Catholic counselor, and there are many of them, such as CatholicCounselors.com and CatholicTherapists.com. But just make sure it's someone who's not, doesn't have any bad philosophical or religious things that they weave in there. But Will, you and I share so much. My parents divorced when I was 7. Our father pretty much abandoned us after that. And I have spent my whole life with abandonment issues, with fear of abandonment, fear of rejection, fear of failure, a lot of anxiety. And you mentioned anger. Anger is definitely in there because look at it this way. What we're supposed to get from our parents are the tools to be able to manage life. And when we get to be adults and we can't manage life, and it was our parents who failed in that area, God bless them. This is not attacking parents. But when we didn't get that, then we realize we are deficient in some of these areas. And what's naturally going to rise to the top? It's anger. Because I know. Right. Paul says, I know how I'm supposed to live, and yet I live a different way. And that happens with some of us. So anger is very understandable as well. But Debbie, like Will said, when you go to counseling and therapy, it's a way to think through these things, to have in your heart go through these things, and they can be lifted and healed by a God who loves us and wants us whole.
Right. And when they're lifted from you, Will, it frees you. It frees you to be
definitely.
Yeah, it frees you to be the best version of yourself. And then you can address our Father as our Father, and you can have that freedom, and you can move through it. And you're going to have those scars that come through from what you have been through as a child. But you know what? There's so many ways you can use that. You can transition that to help others, Will. And I hear in you such a beautiful, beautiful soul. I mean, even the fact that you are able to communicate this on a global platform and you welled up with emotion, that just goes to show your incredible heart and just a generous soul that you are. So I just say thank you. Keep telling your story because you're helping others. Through your pain, you're going to bring relief to others. And that's an amazing gift you can give to others and give to yourself as well. So I just want to say thank you so much for feeling prompted by the Spirit to share your personal journey with therapy and your life story, because it's important for all of us to hear it. So I just want to say thank you, Will.
Thank you, and that was my hope for calling, that it may help someone else.
It certainly did, Will. It actually just reinforced my next counseling session is this Thursday, by the way. So I'm working through a lot of these same issues that you are, Will, and I have definitely benefited. I have been able to reframe. I've been able to forgive and be forgiven. And, of course, self-forgiveness is one of the biggest things we all have to work through as well. So, Will, you have benefited many, many people with your call today. Thank you so much.
And Jerry, can you share just real quickly some of the emails that are coming in? Because they're coming in very fast and they wanted to be on the air.
Yeah, you can always email take2@EWTN.com. Zach says this: Dear Jerry and Debbie, I have been in therapy several times and am currently seeing a psychologist. I have found it very helpful. I have several issues that the average person doesn't understand, and I can only talk to my therapist about them. I also am in a 12-step program, and this is also essential in my well-being. Therapy and 12-step groups are rarely suggested on Catholic radio. Well, here they are now today, Zach. I definitely can endorse both of those. Most times it seems that people are supposed to solve their problems by themselves. If it wasn't for the help I've received, I probably would have died. Wow, would have died many years ago. And that's from Zach via email.
But see, I personally think that's one of Satan's tricks and lies to us, Jerry, is he wants us to feel like we're on an island. And it's not true. There are people out there that can help. There's spiritual direction. There's therapists. There's friends. There's family members. There's people that can help, and they want to help. You just have to let them into that island. You have to let them on your island, and then you realize you're not alone. Okay, Rich in San Antonio, Texas, on Guadalupe Radio Network. Hi, Rich. Thanks for waiting and welcome.
Hi, and thank you for taking my call. Normally, I only get to listen to your show when I'm on lunch from work, but I'm off today, and I get to hear the entire show. And I think it's not coincidence; it's providence that you have this topic. So, and I'm going to try and get through it. I'll try and be very brief. But I just retired from active duty, U.S. Army. And I was married for 25 years and have 5 children. And when we got married, my wife had never been baptized. And I asked if she would become Catholic as we got married, and of course she did. And over the last 25 years, she blossomed into the most wonderful Catholic woman you could imagine. I've never known anyone to be full of more beauty or grace than my wife. But during our entire marriage, I was very abusive. I was verbally abusive. And as the kids came along, I was verbally abusive to them as well. I had always, my entire life, suffered from feeling that I wasn't worthy enough, that I was a failure, and that I would never measure up. And I had these feelings even though I was an officer in the military. I had a bachelor's degree and 2 master's degrees, one from Harvard, but I never felt worthy. And after a couple of deployments, it began to really escalate. And it got to the point to where, suicide was a viable option for me. I had started counseling. A friend of mine in the military picked up on some things, and I was diagnosed with PTSD. And when I began the counseling, it really started to bring out a bunch of things that I had never brought out before. Through that counseling, from the PTSD, it was determined that I had clinical depression. And the depression had probably been there my entire life. But it was the diagnosis of the PTSD that really brought it out. And it had gotten to be so bad to where my impact on my family was so detrimental that I thought the best gift I could give them would be for me to kill myself. And I went on a retreat the week I was going to do it, because I wanted to go to confession, and I was going to take the chance. I know how ridiculous it sounds, but sometimes you don't think very straight. And during confession, Father yelled at me. And when I explained my feelings of worthlessness and being a failure, he quite frankly yelled at me, and he said, "Who the heck do you think you are?" But he didn't even use the word heck. And he challenged me to say, "Who the heck do you think you are that God can forgive you, but you can't forgive yourself?" And from that day, from that moment, years, 2.5 years of professional counseling from a psychologist, a psychiatrist. I had gone and gone and gone, but it never really cured anything or got me anywhere. From that confession, everything fell in line. And I went on another retreat. I began talking to my priest, and all of a sudden, it was as if everything lined up. All of the professional counseling I was having, now all of the spiritual counseling. And I wish I could tell you that this had a happy ending, but it doesn't. My wife and I are currently separated, and we're pending a divorce. She's filed for divorce. But my kids are all estranged from me. I don't speak to them. But what I'm able to do now, which I never thought I could have possibly done, is I'm able to pray for them. I'm able to understand why we're in the situation that we're in, but I pray for them every day. I pray that they can somehow get to the point where they can forgive me. I pray for their peace and their happiness, because for so long they lived a life walking on eggshells because they didn't know what kind of husband or father was going to come home from work, that particular day, living on eggshells. And I pray that they will accept counseling themselves, because I know where my depression came from my childhood and from my family, and I want the cycle to stop with my children. So if it weren't for that counseling, both the professional that the military provided to me, which was just so helpful, and then combining it with my Catholic faith, which had been so dormant for so long, that is really what took me out of the hole that I was digging. Mm-hmm. And as a man and an infantry officer, it was so hard to accept the fact that I needed help and that I had to talk to somebody. And I would offer that to anyone who's listening, that it's okay. It's not a sign of weakness. And I do have self-worth. I do know that I was created in the image of God. And I pray every day for my family. And even though we're in the midst of getting a divorce, I pray for our marriage every day. And I just wanted to share that with you. And I could never have done it if it wasn't for the professional counseling and then the spiritual guidance from my priests. Because the only reason I was in confession that day was to get ready for suicide.
Well, thank God that you went to that particular priest and that confession, because that absolutely saved your life. But here's the thing, Rich, your story, first of all, it's God, where you're at right now. I know it's painful because of your family of 5 children and your wife, and you said the divorce it looks like it's coming that way. I can relate to that because I went through that, and it's so painful. But where you're at spiritually is such a perfect place for you. And you have to remember that. You have to remember that you're in a great spiritual place, and you have to keep building on that and let the good Lord use you in ways that you never could have imagined. I mean, thank you for your military service. We appreciate that so very, very much. But God's going to use you for even greater things. And you just have to hold on to that. What I would suggest, though, is you said you're praying for your family every single day. If you could incorporate the Lady Undoer of Knots novena, Lady Undoer of Knots. Rich, you say it, have your friends say it, have family members say it. Please get a bunch of people together and say it, because she will help you through this. She will help you through this, and she will watch over your family as well. Our Lady does not disappoint. So I can hear the pain that, because you want your family to be whole now, and I get that. And you know what? We all want that for you. But let's take it one step at a time and see where the good Lord unfolds this, and let it play out, because we can't control other people, right? You can't control your kids; they're grown. You can't control your wife, but you can control yourself, and that's what we get to do. And we get to hunker down in prayer. This is the devil wants us to give up, and we're not going to give up. Okay, so let's do this and see where it unfolds, and see what unfolds in your life and for your family as well. You've got our promise for that, Rich. Is that good for you?
It is. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Rich. So much I could say as well, but we're short on time here. And please feel free to email us anytime, too, at take2, the number 2, take2 at EWTN.com. And, Rich, I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. And the one thing that I was going to say real quick, Rich, you, from day one in your marriage and in your family, you were called to be the leader, the spiritual leader of your family. Even though your family is moving apart right now, you have the tools to be that spiritual leader, like you said, through prayer and in a spiritual way. Maybe not physically, but how many millions of times in the history of the world have couples divorced, separated, things have happened, and then all of a sudden through prayer and sacrifice, God brings it all back around. So Rich, anything is possible. We're going to pray for that for you. And please feel free, like I said, to email us, take2@EWTN.com. Beautiful story. Okay, Deborah in Prescott, Arizona, listening on Sirius XM 130, calling Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. Hi, Deborah. We got about 2.5 minutes, but we wanted to get you on. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, and it'll take about that long. I thank you so much. I feel my story is really a God's miracle. I didn't know it at the time, but my mother was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer and had 2 months to live. I had just gotten married a year before, and I'd always lived with my mother. And so I opened the yellow pages. I got my finger, and I just pointed and said, eeny, meeny, miny, mo. I'm going to call this person, this therapist. She was local. I went to her, and my goodness, I mean, I didn't see God's graces till the end because I was struggling to lose my mom and newly married. And I went to her and told her, and she says, my mother had cancer. She passed away, and I have cancer. And I'm a 3-time cancer survivor now, but at that time, when my mother when she passed away, I had cancer just once. And getting into the new relationship with my husband, I said, I want to do something to help our marriage and to help me in losing my mother, who I've lived with all my life and was my best friend. It was very difficult for me. And at the therapy session, I threw pillows, I screamed, I cried, I did everything. But to make this story shorter is that she told me to journal to my mother, journal to my husband, feelings and everything. That really, really helped. As of this day, we celebrated our 20th year anniversary, my husband and I didn't think I would be here to celebrate it because I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer in 2016. Like I said, this is my 3rd time having it, so I'm a 29-year survivor. And what I've done with it, and I see God's graces and glory through all this of losing my mother and saying goodbye through the journal, my feelings, and loving my husband, having a therapist to go to, and not family, not friends. It's just, the therapist to help me, that we have such a beautiful relationship. He was my caregiver, and now I'm helping others through cancer that are struggling.
Right.
Where am I at this? I have such peace and joy. It's unbelievable because I know what God has done through this.
Amen. Deborah, first of all, you're a cancer thriver. You are a strong lady. Go to Deborah in the Old Testament. She was strong. She was one of the strongest women. So you've got that. And your mom, we've got her in the book. Real quickly, Deborah, your mother's first name, if you want us to put it in the book. Okay, we can't get her first name? Okay, we'll get it. Ryan will get it. We'll get her first name. And Jerry, I think we should do a part 2. What do you think?
Yeah, a lot of calls that we weren't able to get to and some social media comments and emails. So what we're going to do is take tomorrow's topic and reschedule that down the line. And we're going to do a part 2 on have you benefited from counseling or therapy tomorrow here on Take 2 with Jerry and Debbie.
Until then, have a beautiful and blessed day. We'll see you real soon.